Hello, today I'm going to talk about concave bevels on razors and how to make them, and especially a concave razor on a wedge razor, an old wedge razor from the 18th and 19th centuries, early razors before about 1860 or so. They were usually made as wedges, and over time I've become particularly enamored with the wedge razors. And David Work across the river is an expert refiner and restorer of old razors, and I've given him a few of my scruffy old wedge razors with broken scales and bent pins and chips out of the edges, and he's restoring them for me. But that's a separate issue. What I'm really trying to show is how do you get a satisfactory concave fine edge on a wedge razor. So I pulled out a bunch of things here. I pulled out some stones and some razors and the ways to look at them, and some oils and some strops and a few different things to show the relative hardnesses of the stones and the relative hardnesses of the steels and the relative widths of the blade, so that we can try and work out how to make a concave bevel on a beautiful old wedge razor like that. So I'm going to start by showing this razor, which is made by Max Sprecher, and what you can see here is that this razor has it's a fairly wide razor. I think it's probably it must be about a 7/8. And what you get with that is the angle between the spine and the edge becomes a little narrower. I mean, the angle becomes finer than if you were to use, say, this razor, which is about a 5/8, I suppose, and this is narrower, so the angle between the spine and the edge is sometimes a little steeper than it is on a wide blade like this. And then when we get to the old wedge razors, it's also about 5/8, and because of the thick steel, there's no long hollow grind on it. So let's see, what can I show here? If I have this piece of straight glass and I touch it there and there, then the distance between the spine and the edge is longer, and just by the geometry that would tend to make the edge slightly finer. So this is a fine razor. It sharpens beautifully, and what I do is I put a concave bevel on it, and that makes the edge even finer. So that's one of them. Now this is a Philharmonica, and they are notorious for having big fat wide blades. This must be a 7/8 or maybe even an inch wide, and because it's very hollow ground, you can see it gets very thin very quickly. Right up here it gets thin, and then this part of the blade is extremely thin, and then when I put a concave bevel on the edge here, it is so even the concave bevel is almost like a hairline edge on it, or at least a hairline wide bevel. So these razors are great. They sharpen beautifully, and they shave beautifully. Here I have a Tim Zawada blade, and this one is similarly, this is a narrower, by comparison with the Philharmonica. It's quite a narrow blade, but they all benefit, as far as I'm concerned, they all benefit from having concave bevels. Now this wedge razor, as you can see here, is also fairly narrow relative to a Philharmonica. Let me put it next to the Philharmonica here so that you can see. And the difference is that this does not get thin quickly. So if I hold them up like this, you can see the edges. I'm trying to aim this at the camera, so you can see that the edge is thick all the way down to the edge here, and here it gets thin very quickly. So, all right, what does that mean? In the end, sharpening them is always a deal. So what I've been doing for some time now is sharpening these razors with stones and then shaped blocks. And the difference is that steels are not the same. So this wedge razor is an English razor. It's made in Sheffield, and the typical hardness of the steel is hardened to about between 55 and 58 Rockwell. This Spanish razor, the Filarmonica, is probably 58 to 60. It's slightly harder than the Sheffield steels. And then when we get to Tim Zawada razors, this razor is hardened to about 62 Rockwell. So this is hardened in the Japanese way, which brings the razors up to a higher degree of hardness. And then this razor is also a Tim Zawada razor. And you can see here it's a Tim Zawada razor. And this is made with Timahagani steel. And you can see, I don't know if you can see, but there's a nice Harmon line. This is a beautiful, very fine steel. And this is hardened to 62, 63, round about there. It's very hard. So what happens is that when I try and sharpen them with my old stones, these two razors are hard to sharpen. This is a little easier, and this is quite easily possible on a stone. So I brought some stones out here to show you what I do. This, for example, is an old Norton stone. I believe it's a synthetic stone. I think this is carborundum. It may be aluminum oxide. Anyway, I'm not going to oil this and show it, but this is a very good rough stone for preparing a milder steel edge like this. So I'm going to move these aside and show you other things here. This is a little Arkansas stone, beautiful shaped Arkansas stone. I've rounded the surface so that I can use it for fighting the inside of curved blades. So this is not really dedicated to razors. But this stone and these two, these are three Arkansas stones. And this, as you can see, is a rainbow colored stone. So impurities in the mineral have crept in, and they've given it these pretty colors. This is the same stone, except that it is not mineralized, and this is called a translucent Arkansas. This is translucent Arkansas, and it's got some, I believe it's manganese that makes it black. So if there's a small amount of manganese mineral or manganese that seeps into the Arkansas stone, into the compressed crystals of the Arkansas stone, then it goes black. And black Arkansas is sometimes called surgical Arkansas. It's called all sorts of different things, but black Arkansas is what I call it. And so what I would like to show you is how these stones managed to cut these razors, the edges of these razors. So I'm going to put some oil on this. I've brought out 3 oils here. Here I've got, this is stroppy stuff. This, I believe, is a glycerin-based oil. Works very well. This is mineral oil, and I put a drop of essential oil in it so that it smells nice. Mineral oil on its own is not fragrant. And I use a thin mineral oil that I get at Tractor Supply. It's much thinner than baby oil, and this works very nicely. But best of all for Arkansas stones is Dan's oil, which is made specifically to use on Arkansas stones. Dan mines the Arkansas out of the quarries, and his sons cut it and shape it and finish it and keep the high quality of the flat surfaces. and grade everything beautifully. And so he's also made Dan's oil, which I find is very, very good. So here I have a shaped stone. This is flat on one side, and then it has an ellipsoid surface on the other side. So you can see it's curved in this direction, and this would be about a 6-foot diameter circumference. I mean, yes, a 6-foot. Well, the diameter of the wheel would be about 6 feet, and then who knows how long this is. It's probably about 25 feet all the way around, but it's curved this way. On the other hand, this surface is also curved, except it's a much bigger wheel. The diameter is about 25 feet, so it's probably 100 feet diameter, 100 feet circumference. So it's much less curved in this direction than it is in this direction. But what that means is that the surface of the stone touches in only 2 places on the razor. So for example, if I put this razor on the edge here, it will touch, let me put this here like that, it will touch only at one point along this surface, one point on the spine and one point on the edge. So it's like a line that sharpens. And as you move it around, that line moves. And as you move it slightly back and forth like that, that line will move from side to side on the surface here. Now this is this is not a strongly curved surface, but it's curved enough, at least in this direction, it's curved enough to refine the bevels on the razors to a greater degree. It works much better than a flat surface, which effectively downgrades the razor from the way the manufacturers made it. The manufacturers use wheels to make the razors. They use a wheel to grind the hollow grind, and then when they put the bevels on them, they use a different sized wheel, and they put a hollow ground bevel on the edge, and then they polish it out. And so as soon as you then get it, and you think that you have to have a flat surface, and you get your brand new, well-prepared edge, and you put it on a flat surface and grind out the nice hollow grind, then immediately you've downgraded the razor, and you downgraded the shave, and well, you can keep going at it like that for a long time, but it's not nearly as good as this. So this is the user's way of keeping the bevels hollow ground. I'm going to put some oil on this. I just put a stripe, rub it around a bit, wipe off my fingers on my trousers. I need to get some toilet paper. Actually, I need to get some toilet paper here. I'm going to be using this. Well, there it is. No fragrance. Just nice, clean toilet paper. It works the best of all. Okay, so here we are. Now, I'm going to rub this Philharmonica on this stone a bit. Now, what I generally do is I actually prefer to hold the razor still and then rub the stone on the razor. So here, I've rested my hand on the table here, and that gives me a nice, stable razor. And what I'm doing here now is rubbing this a little bit to sharpen it. And you can see I rub it at about a 45-degree angle. I'm not rubbing it straight across like that, and nor am I running it along the edge as much as this is a natural movement for my arm and my hand, my elbow. I've got my elbow actually resting on the arm of the chair here. And here I rub. And what I'm going to try to show you here is how long it takes to get some swarf on the stone. So far, I have nothing. All right, I'll turn the razor over and see if I can get any kind of action out of this. So again, I'm holding the razor on the stone like this. And as you can see, I'm not making much headway in getting this sharp. the reason is that this razor is hard. It just doesn't cut that fast, at least not with an Arkansas. So an Arkansas is really a finishing stone. And if I get this razor, which is slightly softer, I can try to get some sort of swarf on it. And let's see here. If I get it like this, I'll rub this a little bit. And as you can see, so far, nothing that I can see. Now there is swarf coming off. It is polishing this edge, but it's not really sharpening it. So if you were to want to make the bevels hollow on this thing, you'd be rubbing for a long time. You would grow a long white beard before you'd actually manage to grind this razor, to grind the bevels on this razor. So it's too difficult. I mean, it's like these super hard kitchen knives that are sold to people who use them for a couple of weeks in the kitchen, and then they get a little bit dull, and they have no idea how to sharpen them because it's too difficult with stones. And then, so what do? They throw them in the trash and buy another one. So you might as well buy a soft steel razor, a soft steel knife, and get a sharpener and keep sharpening it. Now this is a stone called, it's made by Norton, and it's called an Ascent. And it's a fired aluminum oxide stone. It's extremely hard and it's extremely fine. This is much finer than an Arkansas stone. So the reason I'm going to show you this is to show that the harder material of this may actually produce a little bit of swarf on this. So let's have a look here. We can give it a shot here. Now this being a flat stone, it's really touching the spine and the edge, not really so much doing anything on the bevels. But here I can see a little bit of swarf forming here, so I'll try to put that there. So there you can see a little bit of swarf is forming after those few strokes. This being a harder material, it's grinding these things. Okay, well, that's fine, but I don't want a straight edge on this. I found that in the end, I just use the curved surfaces and they work the best. So how can we do it better to get the thin edge? Well, what I did first is I got a bunch of pieces of glass, and then I got some of these diamond films, these 3M diamond films, which I got from Lee Valley, and they come in, let's see, they come in sheets like this. They're 3 by 6 inch sheets, and I have my little stone, my pieces of glass here are cut to 6 inch lengths, 1 inch wide, and so I cut these pieces of Lee Valley of 3M diamond film, and then I stuck them onto these bits of glass. Where did I put the piece? Oh, here, underneath here. I cut them up like this into these pieces, and then I stick them onto the glass, and then these actually work extremely well. So for example, this is the green, which I think is the finest. Let's see, orange, pink, and green. Let's get some of the pink, which is a little bit coarser. This is just to demonstrate that this stuff cuts. So where did we have that? Oh yes, here we are. We've got the this old wedge razor. So okay, so there we are. You can see right away that there's swarf in this oil here. So this cuts very quickly. The problem is it's flat, and that's not what we want. So I'm going to wipe that off and put these aside because we don't want those. These are larger pieces of glass that I ground. I ground a matte surface onto this, like the ground glass screen for a camera, and then I put the thinnest diamond emulsion on here, and all that did was make a lot of nicks and made a terrible mess of the edge. No good at all. It was an experiment, unsuccessful. So that's no good. Let's put that over there. Get rid of these flat pieces of glass, and then we come down to the good stuff here. So these are blocks of wood. I made these blocks of wood out of maple. I French polished them, or at least I polished them with shellac, so that they are coated and the oil does not soak into the wood and make a mess of it. So here you can see I have various different shapes. I started off making thin blocks. They're great because I can hold the piece of wood like this, and I can rub it nicely on the edge like that. Works very nicely. These are very light, and it's easy to hold. But in the end, I decided to use the thicker pieces. So I put these to a side, and then what I did is I got these. So here you can see is a piece of maple again. This is nicely shaped, nicely figured at least. And this is a flat surface. And then here you can see this has the ellipsoid surface on this side. So it's curved that way and it's curved that way. And then it's about, well, I suppose I started off with 3/4 of an inch thick. So it's about 3/4 of an inch thick here. And then it's less on each end. And the two surfaces that I use the most are these two. Let's see, is this the orange, the pink? Let's see, I've got a note here that says that the orange is 15 micron. It's about 1250 mesh, sort of roughly equivalent. The pink, this is the orange, this is the pink, and the pink is 3 microns, so that's about 4000 grit. And then the green, which is this here, this is let's see, it's 0.1 micron, so that's very fine. I don't use it because I don't need it, I don't think. I have other ways of getting that fine ridge. So the two that I really use are the orange and the pink. And what I do is let's get the orange here. Now this wedge razor, I've been shaving with this. I shaved with this morning, and it shaved absolutely beautifully because it's already been sharpened and polished, and really works absolutely beautifully. But for demonstration, I'm going to do that a bit more just to show you what happens. So once again, put a stripe of oil on it, rub it around, and then I get my razor, and well, my preference is to hold the razor steady, as I showed you earlier. I'm going to show you first how this Spanish steel will sharpen on the diamond lapping film. All right, just with those few, you can see that there's already swarf. I mean, this is off the spine and this is off the bevels, but you can see how quickly it takes the steel off, whereas trying to do it with the Arkansas was not terribly effective. Okay, I'm going to put this away, and I'm going to put this away because I think it's this is the harder steel. But we have one there. We have a Timsawada razor here. So this is the super hard steel, and I'm going to do it this way so you can see it. I'll distribute that swarf into the oil, and here I'll show you how this works. So you can see just a few strokes, and you can see the swarf is already building up over here. So the diamond material being that much harder, diamond being the hardest material that we know about. It's number 10 on the Mohs hardness scale, and it's the hardest thing that we know about. And this steel, when it's hardened to 62, 63 Rockwell, has a hardness of about 6.5 to 7, maybe somewhere around there on the Mohs scale. So this is not just 3 grades higher; it's a geometric grade, and it's not a smooth grade. It's just that the stones are at least the minerals are graded to show hardness. So diamond is 10. This, as I say, is about 6.5 to 7, and you can see that the diamond cuts this easily, whereas Arkansas stone is about 6.5 to 7, so it's not that much harder than the steel. And so if I rub this on here, you can see it. By comparison, not much happening. Now it is polishing. It's polishing that edge quite beautifully, and it does make a difference when you're going to shave with it. So after you've sharpened everything and you want to use an Arkansas stone to polish your edge, there's no problem with that. It'll do a good job. But nothing there. So I'm going to clean this off, because you can see that even the hard steel is easily cut with a diamond. All right, let's put that aside, and let's get back to this wedge. So here we have it. Now I prefer to sharpen with the razor steady and hold the stone in my hand. And I find with this thicker stone I can hold it very easily without slicing off the edge of my fingers on the razor. If I do that and my fingers are protruding beyond the edge, I can literally just shave the ends of all 3 fingers. Nice job. Holding it like this is easy, and for the most part my fingers don't even go over the edge of the razor. But here we are. This is the orange, so this cuts much faster because it's coarser, and for preparing the edge this is great. So here, with a very light touch, one thing about these is that very light touch is needed. And here I am rubbing it away. And when I started to be able to get this entire wedge refined on the edge with a concave bevel, took me about, I'd say, half an hour. Very lightly polishing like this. You don't want to push. If you push hard, you find that the edge bites into the mylar, and then you rip your edge, and then you've got to use a new piece or a different area, and pretty soon it's a wreck. But I'm fairly good now about not cutting them anymore. And just this slight movement. As I get toward the toe of the blade, I can rock the surface here toward the toe, and then as I get to the heel here, I can pull it toward the heel so that I'm all the way into the heel. It's not that you actually turn the thing as much as you just move the pressure slightly toward the toe or toward the heel. Now, as you can see, there's quite a bit of swarf there in this very short time, plenty of swarf there. And if I wipe the razor, let me get a clean piece, a clean surface here. And if I wipe this, you'll see. There you are. You see, you can see that there's quite a lot of swarf in that. So this cuts very quickly. And but even though it cuts so quickly, it takes me about half an hour to actually shape this bevel to a full concave bevel and make sure that it's sharp all the way along. And how do I know it's sharp? Well, I use these magnifying glasses. I used to use this 10-power jeweler's loupe, and it was terrific, except that you always had to find the light, and wherever the light was, you could eventually get to it and see it. But what I found is very effective is using this fairly low magnification. It's 5 times magnification in this Eschenbach light, and it's got a little LED light in the back. So when I look, it shines the light on the edge like that, and then if you look at the edge, not at the bevels, but at the edge, you can sort of turn it up and you'll be able to see if the bevel is cut all the way to the edge. It is so easy to think, oh yeah, that looks great, I've got that sharpened, all I need to do is drop it a bit and then I'll be done. Not so. It's very difficult to see all the way to the edge. It's beguiling. The edge kind of looks fine. You see the hollow, and then the edge hides behind. It sort of rolls over and hides. But when you hold it up like this and you look at the edge, you can see if there's any glinting spot on the edge, and typically it'll be, you know, a stretch. It'll be from here to here, and it'll be slightly, it'll reflect slightly, and then over here it'll go dark because it's already thin enough. And whatever the case, you can see where you need to do a little more work. So you know, if for example I needed it up here, I just go and do a little bit more in that area. And this is the wonderful thing about using these narrow blocks. If you try and get a big flat stone, a big flat piece of glass like, get a piece of glass like this, and you try and sharpen on that, and you're trying to get the spine flat and this flat, well, you never kind of, all you do is you end up changing the shape of the edge, and you develop a frown or a smile or whatever the case. You end up wrecking the razor. Whereas with this, you treat the edge as the accumulation of a whole lot of pieces of edge. And this handles it beautifully, because with the single line that this is making contact with, every part of that edge is now beautifully shaped eventually. When you keep looking until you got it, and when you think you've all got it, you got it all, then the next thing to do is to actually deburr it. So what I do is I wipe this off, and then I've got my strops here. And these are just little bits of leather. This happens to be cordovan leather, which is my favorite leather because it's very thin, it's very dense, and it's superb. And so here's a piece, and what I've done with this is I put a little bit of paste in here. And what I have done, this is the finest paste that I have. This is made by Gunny Juice. And this is 0.25 micron emulsion. It's a diamond emulsion, and so it's in here. You've got to shake it up, and then a couple of drops onto the leather, and rub it in, let it dry, rub it in like that. And then to remove the burr, what I do is I just come in here, and then I wipe it very gently along like that. And I'm slightly pulling it down. I'm slightly pulling it down like this, so that you don't want to go against the edge, because it'll dig in and you'll cut the leather and you'll wreck your razor. But by sort of wiping it along the edge and slowly pulling it off the edge, I find that 3 or 4 wipes on each side is enough to remove any burr. And I take the burr off after I've used the orange. After I've used this, I'll often look on the edge and I'll see the bits of burr gleaming away in the light, in the LED light, and it's important to get rid of the burr. The burr is the thing that can give you a nasty razor burn. So get rid of that. And I get rid of it before I do the refinement on the pink stone. So I change, once I've got the burr off, I've looked at it carefully, and I found that when I look at it straight on, it looks great. Nice clean edge. So I get a little more oil, a little stripe of oil along there, move it around, and then I go at it again. I get it on the surface like this. I've got my finger under here to stabilize it. My hand is on the table. It's nice and stable. I'm not likely to cut myself by flailing the razor around, but here we are. Just go at it, and this, what did I say it was? It's pink is 3 micron. So this 3 micron diamond film made by 3M, and these 3x6 inch sheets are sold by Lee Valley. If you want larger sheets, Taylor Woodworking, I think they're in California. Anyway, Taylor Woodworking sells 8.5 by 11 sheets of the same materials, but the 3x6 sheets work out perfectly for me because I slice the sheets up into 3 1-inch wide pieces, 6 inches long, and then they fit on my 1-inch blocks, which are 6 inches long. All works out very well. So I will polish this, and I'm showing you here, but I'm not going to bore you with showing you the entire process, but I just keep working at this very light pressure. Turn it over. You can see the swarf is forming here very quickly, and turn it over. Go at it again, and I will keep doing this until the edge is perfectly formed. So what I then have is this convex surface, this ellipsoid surface, will be making a concave bevel and a very fine, long, thin edge, which is very flexible. So on a microscopic level, it flexes over your face and cuts. In my experience, this gives me the best shave of anything. And what is very pleasing for me is that I am now effectively using my old wedge razors to get a good shave. It's wonderful. So here we are. When I finished with the pink, I then get my little strop, and I will give a final strop to it. So I'm not using my 18-inch strop on the or 26-inch strop on the back of the bathroom door and rubbing this thing around into a nice dull edge again. This is my strop, just that little tiny piece at the end of the leather there. And all I'm doing is I'm removing the last bits of residual burr. So wipe it along like that, very gently. And it's just enough to take away those microscopic little filaments of burr. The big deal with this is that it's a very gentle touch. So that's probably enough. So let me wipe this down with the old toilet paper. And if I look at this now, the bevel, I don't think you'll be able to see this in the camera, but the bevel looks perfect. And then if I look up at the edge like this, which is where it's important, and I get it at the right angle, I can look with the magnifying glass and I can look along the edge and I can see the vanishingly thin edge. Beautiful edge. Goes black when there's no reflections. The edge just goes black. And then I know I've got a good razor. So I can get a hair here and it'll just catch and pop right off. Most of all, when I shave my face, it doesn't hurt, shaves beautifully. And to restore this or fix it up after each shave, I can probably go 2 or 3 shaves without messing with it. And then I might just wipe this along and just do that once or twice after shaving. And that'll just straighten out the edge if it's got slightly moved. Just that. That's enough. And after a few shaves, I might go back to the pink stone. I never go back to the orange once it's done. Go back to the pink stone. Just take it down a little tiny bit. And then I've got my perfect, beautiful edge again. And so here I have my razor from let's see, it's Mappin & Webb, and it says something about Anyway, Cutlery Works. Anyway, it's Sheffield, and it's a Mappin and Webb. I didn't know that Mappin and Webb was making wedge razors. I knew Mappin was, but Mappin and Webb, I think, worked much later. Anyway, whoever it is, this is for strong beards, and it's M, and it's called Trustworthy, and it is indeed very trustworthy. This is a beautiful old razor, and one of my favorite. There it is. All right, that I think gives an idea of what's required to thin the bevels and then make a perfect edge. All right, that's enough for today.